Very good morning. This presentation is brought to you by Resonate International with a mission to leverage knowledge worldwide. The topic being covered is the deep state, inevitable existence or transformative scope. Ladies and gentlemen, the term deep state evokes mystery, influence, and often controversy. While definitions vary, it broadly refers to entrenched, powerful groups within a nation's bureaucracy and intelligence networks that operate independently of elected leaders. This hidden power structure is often viewed as a self-sustaining entity that influences national policies, sometimes aligning with or diverging from public interest. The origins of the deep state concept trace back to the early 20th century, emerging prominently in Turkey and later grew into a global phenomenon. Worldwide, it now resonates across modern democracies and is commonly associated with countries possessing robust military, intelligence, and bureaucratic systems. Nations where powerful entities sometimes seem to shape political outcomes beyond visible governance. In the US, this idea grew in the 1960s amid concerns over intelligence agencies seen as influencing public perception and foreign policy. Today, the deep state is considered to cast shadows within the corridors of power, posing a question of profound importance. Is the deep state an inevitable facet of governance, or does it hold a potential for transformative reforms? The deep state's nature is complex. Its members often belong to elite groups within military, intelligence, and economic sectors. Their unofficial influence on policies can reflect their specialized knowledge, shaping national security or economic interests, elements critical to stability. However, this influence sometimes runs counter to transparency, raising ethical concerns about democratic principles which prioritize accountability and separation of powers. Critics argue that an unchecked deep state compromises these ideals, creating a governance layer hidden from public scrutiny. In the United States, for instance, a 2013 investigation revealed gathering of vast quantities of data on citizens without judicial oversight, blurring the boundaries of authority and eroding public trust in the process. The role of the deep state, by design, can stabilize or destabilize political landscapes. Supporters claim it serves as a stabilizing force against drastic or unpredictable political shifts, ensuring that national security and foreign policy remain consistent despite changes in leadership. Detractors argue, however, that this role can suppress progressive policies, create barriers to reform, and perpetuate outdated agendas, reinforcing bureaucratic inertia. The 2019 Global Trust Barometer found that only 48% of people worldwide trust government institutions, an erosion of trust often attributed to perceptions of deep state-like entities at work behind the scenes. The effects of a deep state extend to compromised governance structures, weakened public trust, and growing civic disillusionment. When people sense an invisible hand directing policy, their faith in democracy wanes, creating fertile ground for conspiracy theories and populist movements. Internationally, nations suspected of harboring deep state structures risk diplomatic strains, particularly in multilateral negotiations when hidden interests can undercut transparency. Such influence does not exist in isolation. It proliferates as government agencies interact with global corporations, media, and private interests, forming an interconnected power web. The ramifications are vast. Unchecked, the deep state can contribute to foreign policy missteps, opaque governance, and internal divisions that polarize societies. Surveillance programs in many countries exposed in recent years highlight how pervasive these structures have become, often operating beyond public consent. Considering above, the role of the deep state is thus dual-edged. On one hand, it preserves stability, particularly across election cycles, ensuring continuity in critical areas of national security. Yet, beneath this continuity lies an unsettling reality. Selective information leaks, politically biased data use, and alliances with influential media and corporates. A Pew Research study in 2021 highlighted that nearly 60% of Americans felt government insiders withhold information for political gain, underscoring public concerns about trust and transparency. Additionally, media outlets, often perceived as society's watchdog, are increasingly owned by politically aligned entities, risking public trust. When ownership aligns with particular political or corporate interests, selective reporting or biased narratives can follow, reducing media credibility and enabling the deep state to influence public perception through strategic leaks. Corporate influence also comes into play, raising the question of whose interests are truly being served. For example, in the US, more than 50% of senior officials in regulatory agencies have taken roles within industries they once regulated, further blurring the lines between duty and personal profit. It's a sobering reality that without oversight, these officials can craft policies, that favor select elites over the greater public good. Interestingly, this phenomena is more pronounced in democracies, where freedom and trust in institutional roles create latitude, often suppressed in authoritarian systems. This paradox sometimes results in officials operating autonomously, eroding public trust, and paradoxically undermining the very democracy that grants them freedom. From a psychological perspective, members of the deep state often hold ideologies shaped by previous administrations or personal beliefs. This ideological tilt influences actions that may stray from constitutional duties, creating a shadow realm where personal bias meets public authority. Questions arise. Is this an issue of training or the lack of checks and balances in the system, or simply an administrative lapse? What is the recommended way forward? Let's examine it and put across some suggestions. Addressing these challenges requires reform that is both strategic and enduring. Following could be a proposed framework for building transparency, accountability, and trust in democratic institutions. First, strengthen the legislative oversight. Empowering independent oversight committees, modeled after the US Church Committee of the 1970s, to monitor intelligence and administrative practices, ensuring they do not exceed their mandate. Second is implement transparency audits. Regular audits for intelligence and regulatory agencies could reveal hidden actions and bring greater public accountability. Third, establish independent watchdogs, dedicated bodies to monitor misuse of authority, data manipulation, and unauthorized leaks could reinforce trust in government processes. Fourth, institute penalties for overreach. Penalize unauthorized data collection, politically biased actions, and abuse of power to deter potential violations. Fifth is enhance ethical training for officials. Embed ethics and civics programs within government training to reinforce that elected representatives, not permanent officials, are the decision makers in democracies. Sixth, monitor corporate bureaucratic relationships. Stricter rules should govern post-government employment in related industries to prevent conflicts of interest and undue corporate influence on policy. Seventh, promote diverse viewpoints and open dialogue. Encouraging a culture that values open discussion and respects multiple perspectives, reducing the need for backdoor actions when officials feel unheard. Eighth, ensure judicial neutrality. Strengthen judicial appointment processes to safeguard the judiciary from political influence, preserving its role as an unbiased arbiter of justice. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, while some degree of deep state influence may seem inevitable, its impact can and should be checked to uphold democratic values. But without reforms, the deep state will remain an unseen player within democratic systems, exercising power unchecked and eroding public confidence. However, with alignment and transparency, it has the potential to become a true stabilizing force that supports rather than subverts elected mandates. By considering the suggested way forward and bringing changes, it is quite possible to safeguard the democratic institutions, ensuring that the deep state, if it exists, operates transparently, upholding the values of democracy. Good luck, best wishes, and God bless.